welcome back to the channel Super TA. Today coming to the show is a Nick part of English language who is also a manager of Hanoi English Centre. She will share the view of some particular aspect related to teaching assistants from a position of manager. Now, welcome Miss Dozo.
Yes, morning everyone.
Yeah, once again, I'm really appreciate for your acceptance with my invite joining the show. And yeah, although I know you very well, but can you introduce yourself to our audience to know you better?
Well, as you know that I'm Zoom and currently I am HB English Center Manager. Before I take this position, I also got many experience when I was teaching assistant at this center during my university journey.
You're wonderful and I really admire you. And yeah, that's for the introduction. Yeah, so now we will start by discussing some questions and aspect related to teaching assistant. Are you ready?
Yes.
Yeah, in terms of assessing teaching assistant role in class and center, what is your opinion about the importance of teaching assistant in the classroom as well as in your center?
Okay. I think that many people agree with me that teaching assistant are the unsung heroes of
Mhm.
teaching professions and an important part of the English Center. Without teaching assistant, many children would find assessing learning a huge challenge. I would divide it into like two sides. The first one, the inside the classroom. The teaching assistant play a role in supporting the teacher to ensure that pupils get the maximum benefit from their learning activities that the teacher plans and carry out for them, and then teaching assistant can assist pupils who have questions and or need
Yeah.
encouragement or seek assistance to accomplish a side task. And the second one, outside the class, teaching assistant make the classroom a venue conducive to learning, keep the class neat, clean, and fresh, a place that inspires learning and stimulates curiosity. That's
Yeah.
my experience.
Wow. Yeah, I glad to hear that. And I believe teaching assistant is an integral part in your center to improve the effectiveness in class and help students learn well. So, do you think your teaching assistant are still working effectively?
Yes, I think that at my center, teaching assistants are still working effectively because you know that their major is English and there's have some years working with children and they have abilities to control the class, to engage students to join the class, and they can handle some problems that may occur during the lessons. If they are not working effectively, I also have so many like training course that they can get before they officially become our worker.
Yeah, it seems your teaching assistant work really well and be used effectively in the classroom and in the center. So, but are there any common problems that teaching assistants should address for a better working performance?
Of course, there are some common problems that I
Mm,
can share with you right now.
yeah.
I think that almost on teaching assistant here right now at that time, a lack of flexibility. For example, when the teacher comes late, they just keep silent instead of taking control of the class or control the student, or in class when teacher divided the class into some groups to do activities, teaching assistant should join hands to engage students in these interest activities, but actually no, they still keep silence and do nothing. I think that that's as some examples I can give to you to illustrate that point. And more one thing that I can share with you is teaching assistant haven't worked effectively to prevent students from behavior issues. Behavior issues here, I mean lots of concentrate on making noises. Yeah. And also in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, teaching assistant working online that cause the poor interactions with students and makes challenges, encourage students be proactive. I mean that sometimes the atmosphere of the class is so quiet.
Yeah, so I think teaching assistants should consider this problem and find out some solutions or techniques to address this problem, right? So what suggested solutions would you like to give teaching assistant to deal with these problems?
Yes. The first one, I think that's flexibility because I have mentioned it before.
Yeah.
I have some tips like they should be willing to change their plans, even depending on like teachers' daily plan, and make sure that they
Mhm.
adapt their activities to meet each child's individual learning. And teaching assistants should maintain a positive outlook and be willing to get involved in any task. Don't be shy and ready needs to engage in messy or challenging activities and provide practical support, such as gathering resources is highly valued by teachers.
Yeah, I totally agree with the flexibility, and I think this skill is not real. Is not only useful in the job teaching assistant, but also yeah, effective with some other jobs, even in my job. Yeah, as you mentioned, in the context of teaching, in the context of COVID-19, class is work on online platform, right? So how to stimulate students' learning spirit to proactively answer teachers' questions and work with teams?
Yes, I think the first important thing that we need to focus is we need to create an equal learning environment. I mean that
Hmm.
all students in the class, have the chance to join the class activities. And then I think the students' learning
Hmm.
spirit depends on teachers' attitude. They can be active when the teacher active. Yes, and
Yeah.
there's the more important thing here. I think that teacher in the class need to create many kinds of activities, not only to improve their learning, but also push their spirit in the class. The activities can be playing games, watching videos, and making crafts, and they can be the group games, or sometimes it can be like individual games
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a set.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, and I believe teaching assistant really appreciate for your suggestions to and have them find out some proper solution to deal with these problems. And as I know, when recruiting new teaching assistants, you also spend time to directly train them to acquaint the job and workplace, right? So, can you share some steps to collaborate with and empower teaching assistant effectively?
Yeah, I
Hmm.
think that meant each person would have each like steps, each strategies. But for me, I also prepare like 3 steps. The first one, I will prepare teaching assistant. The second one, collaborate with teachers as teaching assistant, and the last one is empower them. I will focus on the first one,
Mhm.
prepare teaching assistant. Yeah, I will recruit. Of course, the first one, the recruit and select committed teaching assistants. And then I will create I will conduct effective orientation and training workshops.
Mhm.
And then conducting a course specific co-teaching team orientations.
Yeah.
And the second one, collaborate with teaching assistant. I think the first is create and maintain a community of collaborations. Yes, and a memorable first day of the class. Respect the unit of each student, cultivate collective curiosity and share discovery, pause, listen, and use clear and effective communication, nature student-centered learning, self-disciplines, and self-reliance. Be reversible and demanding, and also provide multimodal feedback, elaborations, and grading.
Yeah.
And the last one, empower
Yeah,
teaching
wonderful.
assistant.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yes, I think we should like develop your own teaching personnel, support student success, retention, and wellness, manage difficult student and situations, and keep asking questions and making suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last effective tips that I always do during my work.
Yeah, I think you work really effectively with it's quite complicated, right? I think there are many minor tasks in each steps, and but I think the complication just make the uh effectively working performance for teaching assistant in your center, right? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I agree that these steps will be the suggestions for teaching assistant to think about their training in their center, and if their manager also work well. So now we will watch a video from the Education Endowment Foundation giving some recommendations that the center and managers also need to apply for more effective collaboration with teaching assistants. And now let's get started.
Our attention turns to classroom level deployment, how teachers and TAs work together during lessons, how TAs can add value to what the teacher does, and how they can help students develop skills around thinking and learning. Let's take a look at the recommendations in more depth.
Recommendation 2 is about encouraging schools, encouraging teachers to use TAs in such a way that will add value to what they do rather than replace them. So consistent with this idea of making sure that the children who struggle most get time with the teacher, it is about teachers thinking how they can achieve that in the classroom. So that, for example, might involve the TA being deployed to work across the classrooms in a roving role or with a group of children, while the teacher has 5 or 10 minutes with the children or the child who is struggling particularly during the lesson.
Well done, William. She doesn't miss a trick.
Recommendation 3 is the one that I often think about as being perhaps the most powerful recommendation in a sort of practical day-to-day sense. What we learned from the research, from the DIS project, it showed us that there are difficulties in the ways that TAs interact with children, largely as a result of not having had any training to know how to interact effectively with TAs. So we see features of spoon feeding and task completion and prioritising getting the work done rather than learning, all of which is not to blame TAs for that, and we're very clear about that if they haven't had any training to know what to do instead. So recommendation 3 is about what are the alternatives to things like task completion and correcting children perhaps too much.
The TAs would tend to move towards task completion a little bit early, so they would tend to give too much help too quickly. And so one of the consequences of that, it was taking away the ownership of, it can take away the ownership of the learner. And so one of the things we're suggesting here is to try and support and train teaching assistants so they can understand how to give the appropriate help at the appropriate time. So we might provide some support around, say, scaffolding, so how they work through just encouraging pupils initially, then maybe doing a bit of prompting, then doing some more kind of cluing. Eventually you might do some modelling where you run through how a particular kind of question works, and only then do you actually then go in and correct at the end of it. So it's just trying to train TAs on how to support pupils in developing their independent learning, really. So they might just initially just let a pupil work by themselves. They might even let them get stuck. They might let them, work through some problems, but then be very carefully then introduce support in the right manner, so that they'll know when to intervene and when to get involved and when to just take a step back. They might take on a job that's helping the whole class. So they might be, for example, I heard the other day, doing some literacy support in a science lesson. So just going round, whilst the teachers may be focused on the science, they might be going round and just highlighting or doing bits of work around literacy that complements the science teaching that's going on in the lesson.
Wonderful.
Yes, I think that after watching this video, I can adopt so many useful advices, and I think that I can apply this into my work when I recruit or I conduct orientations and working course, training course. And I also think that many teaching assistants can watch these videos and can gain their own experience after their watch. Yeah. I will send this link to our worker in our center.
Wow. I'm glad to hear that. Before saying goodbye, can you give some advice to motivate our audience, if especially teaching assistants who are getting trouble with the job?
Yes, I think that when you decided to start any new work, be consistent with your decision and keep enthusiasm to do this well. Don't worry about asking your managers to give a proper solution for the existing problems, because as managers, I always be willing to answer any question related to our work to can improve our productivities. So thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. And I'm glad to hear that. And once again, I would like to say thank you so much for your participation and sharing many useful information and advice for our audience. And that's what we really want to say to you. Hope you guys can overcome all challenges in the job and in the future job. Thank you for watching the show. See you next time in the next episode.